over time, as those one or two people gain more and more experience in the role, they won't need as restrictive a rule book. You can loosen it up and allow them to be more subjective because they have made the decisions before. The precedents that they are setting are precedents that they have set themselves.
That people want to do the revisionist history and pretend like every other driver in history who's ever lifted World Driver Championship silverware hasn't been that same beast at some point or other in their career, right? What Max is doing there, every other champion's done at some point in their career. True or false, Baxty? Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Shakedown of 2025. With me as always, my brethren, my comrades, my colleagues, my brothers, the one they call Sebastian, the one they call Shazinho, aka the A-side. How are we doing, chaps? It doesn't matter how you are doing because there are very many F1 centric threads at which we need to pull. Should we talk about Sir Lewis Hamilton? Sebastian, coming to you first. What have you made of this Sir Lewis Hamilton, Sir Lewis Carl Davidson Hamilton's first week over at Scuderia Ferrari?
Well, he crashed the car, so that clearly means he's washed, right? So, game over. No, to be honest with you, I've been really impressed with how Ferrari have done this. Like, the marketing has been on point, with the little teases over time. And then, you had the picture of him in front of Enzo's house, which, when he just looked like stepped straight out of The Godfather. And then, I think he's doing all the right things, getting behind the wheel of the cars, getting used to it. Him having a crash in testing is, it's fine. It happens. Racing drivers drive cars fast, particularly ones where you're unfamiliar. You're going to make mistakes and crash a car. So I'm not particularly worried about it. And he also crashed the McLaren in his first year. And he also crashed the Mercedes in his first year. And what did he do in his second season with those teams? He won the World Championship. So, if you're looking for an omen, 2026 will be Lewis's year.
Let me dive. I saw
copium, all the copium and the hopium right there.
Statistical apophenia, Baxty. I've been leveraging these stats. The 40-year-old won 3 40-year-old champions ever. Only one chap has won it in 3 cars. World Championships, and that chap was Juan Manuel. I've been talking about stats all this while, and because the narrative didn't suit, people would tell me, Cameron, shut up with your statistics. And now all of a sudden we get a stat that indicates that Lewis Hamilton may potentially win himself a World Championship. And Lewis Hamilton fans are well on board. Baxter, let me follow up with this though. Like I like you really liked initially seeing Lewis in the red overalls with the yellow badge, black prancing horse atop. It felt like a moment. It was like a rising F1 tide floats all boats. Though 4.6 million likes on Instagram, record-breaking settings. Previous one was held by Charles Leclerc, aka modern day Jean-Alesi, having won the Italian Grand Prix. Chaos, techier than techie things. But Baxty, in week 2 of now, are you not a little bit tired of it? Don't you echo Sir Lewis's sentiments today in his Instagram post that he kind of just wants racing can't come soon enough now?
No, I mean, I'm not. People may think that I'm one of these Lewis Hamilton fans that kind of gets any kind of his content, be it a photo or a video, and sort of microanalyzes down to the nearest pixel. And I just enjoy what comes out, and it's like, oh, that's a cool picture. Oh, that picture of him in front of Enzo's house is absolutely badass. Like, I wouldn't sit there and go, oh, look, there's 7 open windows and then a door to the 8th. Like, it's like, what?
Isn't that the point though, Baxty? Surely that's kind of isn't that there is
like, you can tell it's off season where we're just like craving content. Correct, and I mean, look, I'm enjoying it. It's good fun. Yeah, and we're getting into reveal season next month and testing, and you've got this big event at the O2 happening, and so I'm looking forward to it. At the moment we're in the kind of like the barren spell where nothing really happens, and then we get the first day of school pictures, and which we're getting a lot more of this year because obviously last year there were no driver changes going into the start of the season. So at least this year we got something to kind of keep an eye on, and see what's around. And yeah, I think obviously Lewis moving to Ferrari, it's definitely generated interest from outside the sport, and seeing, I mean, who is it? Ben Stiller just is repeatedly posting anything Lewis does, and there's a major Hollywood actor doing that. So it's definitely caught the attention of the wider world, and now hopefully F1 and Ferrari and Lewis himself can leverage that into getting more attention onto the sport, more eyes onto the sport, and hopefully Ferrari give him a car worthy of the build up they've been giving it, because it would be a very Ferrari thing to do this massive build up and then build an absolute clunker of a car.
It would indeed be a very Ferrari thing. So Baxton, I think that is the concern of many a Sir Lewis Hamilton fan around the world. Shez, talk to me very quickly about the first couple of weeks of Sir Lewis Hamilton in their red overalls, and in turn that their red Scuderia Ferrari car.
Yeah, it looked cool, didn't it? Like, been waiting pretty much a year to not have to Photoshop Lewis's head onto a Ferrari race suit. So it's cool to see that for real. But like you guys, I think it was really cool to see the pictures. I like the way it was all done. But ultimately, as soon as I saw him on track in a car, and then he was going to Barcelona, and then he's had his little accident, all I really want to know is how the boy actually stacks up, and like what we can glean from what he's done so far, what Ferrari have got in the pipeline in terms of like they completely changed their car for this season, whole new front suspension philosophy compared to what they've been doing for the last few years. Is that going to help him? Is it going to hurt him? Is it going to help Charles? Is it going to hurt Charles? Where does that's the stuff that I want to get, that I want to hear about, what I want to get into, because ultimately that's what's going to dictate how his season goes. But I have to say, this off season, our two favourite drivers on social media have done very typical things for them. Lewis has enjoyed dressing up nicely and being in front of a camera, showing his sponsors off and getting loads of likes on Instagram. And Max Verstappen has been exacting virtual revenge on people that knock his rear wing off. So I think this has been typical Max and Lewis over the off season. Nothing's changed.
Yeah, you know what? Thou shalt never overtake around the outside of one Maximilian Verstappen. Eh? Talk to me about this, Baxter, because you put it on the Shakedown WhatsApp group. What do you make of Max Verstappen in that Daytona 24-hour virtual race the other day against?
I mean, I mean, look, I get, the guy, it was an accident, but was there any need to be that much of a dickhead? Like, Jesus Christ, like. Yeah, I mean, maybe he caught word of what the guy was. I mean, the guy was being an idiot on stream, and what he said was like, "You don't have to say that, mate. Like, that's just ridiculous." Like, yeah, the guy's very, very talented, and I think would have made it regardless of familial links. But like, it's not a good look when your F1 world champion is basically beefing with kids online. Yeah,
yeah. Well. So it's
quite
them nasty kids.
I hear you, Baxter, but I'll see that and raise you this. Listen, I don't. There is something in Max Verstappen that attracts me to him. I think there was a film once where they said it was a documentary. They're talking about Mike Tyson, and they were saying the reason why we all are so attracted to Mike Tyson is because there is something in him that is also in us. And I don't think it's a gazillion miles. I'm not comparing Mike Tyson and Max Verstappen, very different entities. But I think, in fact, I know for a fact, Baxter, that when racing I've got the videos to prove it. Then racing my friends online, I've done similar moves and or worse. I don't give a fuck. If I feel like I'm slighted, like I will exact vengeance. So when I see Max do something like that against a driver who, by the way, and a team who haven't raced, they haven't been like the upper echelons of sports etiquette apparently all season long, doing dodginess in the pits, holding themselves up deliberately to disadvantage rival teams. Like Williams in esports are a bit like Dick Dastardly, if anything. And Max was just like, you know what? Have some of that. Like, This isn't
Yeah.
me. This
I mean,
isn't
look,
me
yeah, look,
excusing it, but
he's human. I'm not gonna, we all have moments, but just the optics of it, Formula One world champion beefs with kid online is just, it doesn't look good. Like, I mean, it was just two wrongs don't make a right. It's,
I
yeah.
got Shez, chime in on this, chap, because it feels like we're going to have a very Maximilian Verstappen centric conversation here running.
Uh, oh man, look, to me, it's what I found it amusing, but it's not me racing. It's not me putting my time and effort into my rig and representing a Formula One team and this, that, and the other. So it's very easy for me to take it a little bit loosely. It doesn't need to mean anything for me, but it's just interesting that um, when everything gets cut up and put up on social media, it's often put up in a way to highlight a particular point, and that point was just to show that Max is an angry man. But we know that actually, sure, yeah, fine, he does have that in his locker. But as you say, Cameron, is that just the competitive spirit of a Formula One driver that if he didn't have that, what the heck else has he got, really? You just can't have one without the other. So yeah, it looks a bit rubbish. But like you, I love the fact that he puts 120% into his sim racing in because that means that I know that's what he's doing when he's on the track as well.
Mm.
I love it. I love that competitive nature. Yeah, it looks a bit rubbish, but actually, can I begrudge him that really? Someone did knock his rear wing off, so maybe they had it coming.
Oof, oof. And herein lies the divide in the F1 community, right? Are we going to be all straight laced and buttoned up and do the Sterling Moss after you Claude thing and what take my car to win the world? Do you know what I mean? Sports gentleman settings, or is it like
That's
I want?
those are different things, Cameron.
No,
Like
no.
like
Well, no, I don't think it is, Shaz.
no, because
I don't
look,
think it is. I think it
it,
comes under the umbrella heading of sportsmanlike
but
behaviour, right?
but but Moss doing that, right, didn't there was no question about Moss's ability, right? About how good he was compared to the person who he advantaged in this instance, Mike Hawthorne, I think it was, wasn't it? But what we're talking about is when Max gets knocked off the track by somebody else, he's then not able to show his ability, and he gets angry about it. Those I think are two slightly different things in terms of what it means to Max. It's not his choice to be knocked off track, whereas it is Sterling Moss's choice to kind of go, all right, fine,
So,
have my car, or
not
help
same.
help his.
Not to engage in your very unique brand of saloon semantics, Shez, but not same, but very similar, right? Under the umbrella heading of the gentleman's sports etiquette after you, Claude, Max Verstappen is divorced from that. You can never ever in life leverage that at him as a praise or criticism, right? Because that's never ever been him. Max Verstappen, in the simplest terms, lowest common denominator, brass tacks, just wants to win. And per Christian Horner in the Netflix Drive to Survive series, if you really want something, then you will do anything to get that thing. That's Max Verstappen. That's what will be on Max Verstappen's epitaph, right? And I think where we have the argument is, and I said it recently on a stream, that people want to do the revisionist history and pretend like every other driver in history who's ever lifted World Driver Championship silverware hasn't been that same beast at some point or other in their career, right? What Max is doing there, every other champion's done at some point in their career. True or false, Baxty?
Oh yeah, I'm not saying Max is the dirtiest driver of all time. I mean, Jesus Christ, he's, as I said, he's human and he's got this, absolute ironclad will to win at all costs. But you know, I think it just shows a fundamental difference in us that I'm a competitive guy when I play my games, but I'm not going to go out. I mean, don't play driving games that much, but yeah, if I'm playing a fighting game and I get beat, I get beat. I'm not going to do what some people do and just, I must keep my unbeaten streak and disconnect. And it's just like if I lose, I lose. Like big deal. Like it's just a game. That's the thing. It. Yes, okay. I think they were competing for money. I think so.
Were
There's a
they?
lot more riding on it than me playing online. But come on, like just get the best result you can in an online game. Like, come on.
Yeah, I don't think that's a language that Mr. Verstappen understands.
What's that
That's the
famous line? It's like it's only a game. Why'd you have to get mad? Like,
I don't. I think that's a language, another turn of phrase that would be like it wouldn't even register. Like it's another
hmm.
language, that sort of stuff. He just
But,
wants to win,
but
doesn't
him
he?
crashing somebody else off isn't winning him the race. You know what I mean? Like it's just
It's
out and
tacky,
out
isn't it?
revenge, isn't it?
It's
And
tacky.
yeah, look, I get it, and I want him to be angry about this stuff because even though it's not a real race car and a real racetrack, it's time, effort, commitment. Like the amount of time and effort he puts into to a sim racing between races and in the off season. Yeah, you're going to get angry when someone does that to you. Absolutely, you're going to get angry because it's a real thing. Um, and yeah, I do love that, but it's not the same as it's not the same as not being fair, which is what Moss did. I know this is semantics, but I think it's sort of moderately important in that I think as a competitive beast, Moss wouldn't have moved out of the way for another driver. What he was doing for Mike Hawthorne was saying, well, actually, you gave him a penalty for something he shouldn't have got a penalty for, so reinstate his time. It's the same as like where they would differ is, for example, if Max at the end of Abu Dhabi in 21 had kind of said, no, 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 you're right.
Can you
I
imagine?
Yeah,
Never going to happen,
yeah,
chap. And
exactly.
this is
Yeah,
what there's a
exactly.
dotted
But
line
but but
between
that but
these two
that's why.
examples.
But there's a difference between Formula One then and the level of
I,
professionalism and
I,
what it means to win
I,
a championship and
a
stuff now, right?
thousand, 1,000% shares. But the same guy that would give Mike Hawthorne that car is also the same guy who would say Abu Dhabi 21. You know what, mea culpa. Give that to Lewis Hamilton. Those two things exist in the same space, and I just don't. Max doesn't have that in him, and I still think there's something to that I almost envy chaps that he's doing the line in the sand, and beyond that, you shall not cross. You won't pass me round the outside. It will never ever happen. That's him. This is me, and like take me or leave me. And I'm almost jealous of that way, that unashamed way of being and driving, because I'm not there. I don't have that. But again, maybe this is what separates some of the very, very good ones slash great ones from the also rans now. Speaking of which, can we talk about Aston Martin? Because the word on the F1 curb is that Maximilian Verstappen could be driving for them as soon as 2027 if that 1 billion offer is anything that you're invested in. So Baxter, you respond to that, sir.
I called it in March of last year that
Ooh,
that's where he could go. Like it just makes sense. Like you got Newey there, why would you not want to go and work with the best designer, particularly if he designs a world championship caliber car? Aston Martin are an ambitious team. They would do anything for him should they need, like Red Bull have done. If he says, I want to be the number one guy, screw Lance, don't care. I want to be the guy. They'll be like, yeah, sure, no problem. They'll do that. Um, and Honda as well is a massive lure. He had a great relationship with Honda. Why would he not want to continue working with them and continue that legacy that he has with them? It makes absolute sense to me. And I had people laughing at me saying, "Oh no, he's only going to go to Mercedes." I'm like, I mean, he might, but I think Aston Martin is a much better option. And now, lo and behold, that it's now considered a done deal, pretty much. Just waiting for Alonso's contract to run down.
mate. But what do you make of Honda almost sabotaging it with that head of the HRC, Mr. Watanabe? Watanabe-san saying that Honda are struggling more than potentially any of the other engine manufacturers on the
I
grid.
won't hear by anything anyone says until I see those engines on track next year. and then
But
we can make a judgment call.
but
Like,
Baxter, don't do that, Baxter, because you know there's no smoke without flames
I
in
mean,
Formula
yeah,
One.
we hear the rumors that Ford are struggling. We hear the rumors that
Just a
Honda
bit.
are struggling, that Audi is struggling. Like, basically, if you're not in a Mercedes or Ferrari powered car next year, then you might as well write off your championship hopes, allegedly. But they still have a year to get this right. They still have a year to find the solutions. They still have, it's, it's easy to make headlines and generate smoke and generate a fire, but and fan those flames, but until we see actual times and actual data, then realistically, it's all posturing, and make of that what you will. I think maybe Honda will be a little bit behind, but who knows? We just won't know.
So that shows you respond how. So
I think that all engine manufacturers that aren't called Ferrari or Mercedes don't know how to run their PR. Um,
oof.
because Red Bull powertrains are sitting there like trying to furiously tell everyone they're fine. No one believes them. Honda are out there publicly telling everyone that their power unit is not as good. But how does anyone know? No one, unless they've got flies on the wall in everyone else's dyno. How the heck do you actually know? And in terms of like where that leaves Max, would you? If your choice ultimately comes down to do I want to be in a car uh, powered by a Red Bull powertrain but with no Adrian Newey versus do I want to be in a car with a Honda powered power unit but designed by Adrian Newey, and I kind of know where I'm going to go. Like the whole thing for me revolves around like it would be madness for not for neither of those parties to at least think about this and see the benefits of it. Like it would be crazy for Aston Martin with all of the investment they've put in, the facility, the infrastructure, Andy Cowell on the engine and infrastructure side, Adrian Newey on the aero side. Um, to not be thinking about having the best driver they possibly could in the car. And by the same token, from Max's point of view, it would be mental to not think that without having the greatest designer of all time in your camp and now going to an unproven self-made power unit, um, it would be crazy not to go, well, actually, the grass literally is greener
No, yeah,
on the British side.
it's a good point that you made there. Is that Shez, by the way, or is that Mark Hughes of Motorsport Magazine? Me and you've been reading the same article, Chaffee. You're making the case because, and the only reason why I say that is because Mark Hughes has written a brilliant article, Motorsport
Yeah.
Magazine, where he makes the case for a Fernando Plan Alonso, Max Verstappen swap deal, and I'm like, hang on. Christian Horner seen entering or coming out from the Aston Martin motorhome at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. What would Christian Horner want in return if indeed Max Verstappen is already sunk cost, ergo 1 foot out the door? What do you think there could be truth to that, Shez?
Oh,
That,
mate, I look. Number one, I don't think Fernando Alonso will ever feel like he's a pawn to be played as a swapsy between team principals. Like, can you imagine him going, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll go to the crappy car because
the crappy car, mate, Red Bull. Bloody Nora. Don't know what
oh
I know.
yeah, but they didn't even come second in the constructors championship in
But
24.
but bloody, they were talking about this the other day, right? That Aston Martin is was it Scott Mitchell? One of them on the race was saying that Aston Martin weren't even like, where did they finish? Fifth in the championship. At some points during last season, that they had the slowest car.
Doesn't matter.
So surely
But
Fernando,
it doesn't matter. They
you're
had
talking
they
about
had
Adrian
no
going
they
forward.
like but you saw how Red Bull's fortunes dropped off after Miami as soon as Adrian Newey left the house. Like it's so like there's a linear correlation between the two
Mm,
things.
mm.
So like does it not stand to reason that the guy that's won a championship with every team he's ever been in with in Formula One other than Leighton House will do the same thing when he gets to Aston Martin? And how do you make that eventuality more likely to happen? Well, you get the greatest driver on the grid right now to do that.
Yeah, fair, fair. It's gonna get techie. And listen, I
By
would.
greatest, I mean best. I don't mean greatest. There is a distinction between the two things.
I was about to say, mate,
Yeah, yeah, sorry,
you're gonna
sorry.
get techie with this goatiest conversation. Go on then, chaps. As we round third base, I want to talk to you about broadly the FIA. I don't even want to get into the Mohammed Ben Salom because I don't have emotional bandwidth requisite to broach that topic. So toxic and insidious is it. But of course, the breaking news was that Johnny Herbert sacked or relinquished from his duties as FIA steward. He was due to be a steward at the Australian Grand Prix, the first Grand Prix of the 2025 season, now no longer required. The FIA statement said that they were incompatible, alluding to the fact that Herbert's been giving so many statements of late, particularly centred around some say soon to be five-time champion Maximilian Verstappen, speaking very disparagingly of him. So, Maxty, do you agree or disagree with the FIA's characterisation that they had become incompatible with Johnny Herbert as a going concern?
Yeah, 100%. Like completely the correct decision. Like when I first saw it, I thought, oh, that's a bit odd. Like, and I saw people going, oh, it's because he criticised Max and why haven't they sacked Derek Warwick? And but then, somebody pointed out to me, they were like, well, he gives quotes regularly to a betting site and he's a referee. How's that right? And I was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. That's completely wrong. Like, yeah, to invoke one of your favourite things, Cameron, this is Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is often the correct one. It is, he didn't want to give up his nice paying job being a pundit for a betting website. So they said, well, we can't let you be a steward. Simple as. Nothing to do with the fact that he's been critical of Max, nothing to do with the fact that Red Bull have probably moaned about him and everything else. It's just simple. You want to carry on doing this, you can't do this. And, in a rare win for the FIA, they've done absolutely the right thing.
Wow. Can you even? It even sounds like an oxymoron. You saying that, Baxty, that the
I know. I
FIA,
think hell's frozen over or something
the
like.
FIA have done the right thing. Bloody not. Could you get more oxymoronic? But I don't disagree with you, Baxty. I think that it was a matter of when and not if, as far as Johnny Herbert, and maybe this has got something to do with why Sky relinquished him from his duties. Right. I feel like there is good journalism and there is good stewarding and then there is good punditry, right? And the two shouldn't necessarily mix. If you want to give opinions and hot takes every single bloody time, then there comes a point when you erode your integrity and almost become a bit of an unreliable narrator because the underlying intention is clear that you're giving out these sound bites with a view to top up your coffers. This is financial resource, no? Like your priority is your bottom line, and so you're being deliberately provocative, no, Shez?
Yeah, but I think you hit the nail on the head with the lining your coffers point because ultimately I think the FIA have done Johnny a favour. Like, why the heck should he have to essentially give up however many weekends he has over the course of a 24 race season, um, basically to turn up for free, get shouted at when he says something, when he makes a decision that other people don't agree with, and see next to no remuneration other than his flights being paid for.
It's a
Like
bit.
what's the point?
Yeah, it's not great, is it? Go on and talk to me about this full time steward thing, Baxty, because a lot of people are saying that full time stewards needs to happen. $1 billion entity in sports franchise as far as Formula One. How and why have they not got consistent full time stewards that follow the Grand Prix circuit around 24 races each and every single year? Do you think that's the panacea, Baxty?
It needs to happen, I think. Like, as to why, I think, they've got a tradition of using local stewards from racing clubs and everything else, and then they have like a rotational crew, and they like to have an ex-driver which rotates between Warwick and formerly Herbert. Vitantonio Liuzzi does it. I think Alex Wirtz does it occasionally. Um, but like realistically, I think you can have professional stewards and can pay them to do it. I mean, it's not going to change the consistency issue that we have. It's not going to change that. It's going to be the same thing. People are going to make decisions you don't like. Particularly if it screws over your driver. You're going to moan about it regardless. look at the situation in NFL right now. You've got referees making calls that favour the Kansas City Chiefs, but how much of that is them actually favouring the Kansas City Chiefs, or how much of it is my team's getting screwed over, so I'm going to moan about it? It's so professional stewards will not fix the inherent issue that we have within stewarding in Formula One, but it will give greater accountability. It will allow for a more stable set of guidelines in regards to racing, in regards to track limits and all of that things, because you know that the same people are enforcing it at each track. So, but it's not going to fix the underlying, like the inherent issue that there is, but it will go some of the way to doing it. But I think it should happen. Maybe with one rotation all between keeping the local, but you have like 4 or 5 consistent, and then maybe swap one out at each Grand Prix. But yeah, that's just my take on it. But yeah,
Fair play. Well, if it's going to happen, according to Mohammed Ben Sulayem, the drivers need to pay for it. Of course, Mohammed Ben Sulayem. That makes perfect
get
sense,
out.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, what is he? Again, I haven't got enough emotional resource nor bandwidth to talk about this man as at the 30th of the first. However, Shez, let me put to you this as we round third base. Talk to me about swearing gate expletives. Is this a ruse from Mohammed bin Sulayem to top up his presidential election fund, using which he intends to leverage no wield influence and get himself elected in December of 2025? Or is it a good idea? Do we need to put our guardrails around the language that our sports athletes and or role models are using, lest our young ones are going to school and repeating language that they hear their heroes in Max Verstappen say?
Oh, man, you made it all serious. Sure, I don't want my 4-year-old listening to Max effing and blinding, but it's not just him; it's all of them, isn't it? And um, yeah, sure, I don't want that. But I was looking at the calendar. I thought the calendar was interesting, right? Because the first 3 races are all sort of fairly classic races, and then we head off to Bahrain, I think, isn't it? Race 4, is that right? The calendar. So so what does MBS say? What's the rule that like if you swear in one race, you get um like a $20,000 fine or something. Second one, you get a suspended sentence, and the third one, you get a 1 month proper ban. Is that right?
Something like that.
Yeah. So if all of the drivers say one swear word in each of those 3 first races, does that mean in Bahrain we don't have any drivers on the grid?
Mate, there you go. It's all at their discretion, though, isn't it? And this is
That'd
what
be
cheeses
brilliant.
me off with the bloody. No, mate, not brilliant. This is what cheeses me off with the rules, right? That's why Charles Leclerc can drop a cheeky F-bomb and apologise and get a different penalty to what Max. I just don't. I
Not
don't.
if it's in the rules. Surely the
Mate,
stewards have
That's
to
why they
apply the
put the
rules
rules
as
in
they're
place, isn't
written.
it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. The stewards have to apply the rules as written.
But put the rules in place. Make sure they're written very in a way that's not open to interpretation at every single turn
Oh,
and juncture, right? Like it can't just be. Do you know what I mean, Shez Baxty? Am I make it? Go on. Here's what I mean by this. Like I know that motorsport is oftentimes shades of grey. Who got to the apex first? Like, what was the angle of the cut? Define the apex at
oh,
Rascasse. Where is that? Do you know what I mean? There's always that shade. It's always going to get techier than techie things. As far it will never be as simple as did the ball cross the line? Yes or no? Was that player offside? Was his leg in front of the other player? Do you know what I mean? It will never be as cut and dry as that in
yeah.
F1. But you're not aided nor helped when the rules are still, as at January 2025, written as if a 5-year-old has penned them. Where are the bloody definitions at the outset? What does apex mean as an example? Does it mean the same thing at Rascasse as it does at Maggots and what are we talking about here? And if that's the regulatory house that you've built on sand, then it doesn't matter if you bring back Charlie Whiting from the dead. They're always going to struggle to institute those rules and regs in a way that's fair and consistent across related parties, because the foundations are, Shez, built on sand.
First of all, Whiting was a race director, not a steward, so he wouldn't have been making any of these decisions anyway. So, and the problem with the stewarding
What is it
is,
with you and the silly and semantics today? So
mate,
you
because
get the
this
point I'm
isn't
trying to make. Don't
this
pettifog
isn't
me.
wait, it is important. Stop it, stop it. You get a ban for that. But but the But the stewarding issue has been an issue for years. The reason we have a driver steward at the moment is because people said it was unfair to not have somebody that knows what they're doing on a racetrack. That's why we have a driver steward. But to then, as John Noble put it this week, not John Noble, Stuart Codling put this week, how can you expect to not pay the driver stewards and then expect them to not go and do the thing that actually pays them money, which is go and be a pundit? You can't have the two things. I'm surprised this hasn't happened before. But the whole point about having a permanent steward is not that you're going to have less controversial decisions. It's the fact that over time, as those one or two people gain more and more experience in the role, they won't need as restrictive a rule book. You can loosen it up and allow them to be more subjective because they have made the decisions before. The precedents that they are setting are precedents that they have set themselves, not what somebody else has set like 20, 30 years in the past. It's not done as a paint by numbers system. It's done as a professional trained job where you know what you are doing. When that happens, then you can lose the where's the apex and were they millimeters ahead when they turned into maggots. It's not about that anymore. It's about, okay, as a racing driver, what is the fairest outcome in this situation? Is it a racing incident, which is what I would class nearly every incident that has been penalised in the last 4 or 5 seasons anyway? Or is it something that actually needs to have a penalty applied to it? That's the whole point of having a professional steward,
I
for me anyway.
so I know this is a race director comment, but the point kind of applies. Is like when Vitic and Freitas took over in 22 after Mazzi, I said that they should have had more time to prepare and create a rule book because that's where they can kind of control and dictate things. They could have gutted out the rule book and created something so everybody knew where they were standing, whereas they had to come in and kind of because they came in so last minute. And I feel like we're only now starting to see. I don't even can't remember what Rui Marquez is the new guy, is it? Yeah, like he's just trying to do the same thing now because he's kind of been dropped in it. What he should hopefully could have been doing over the off season is setting that new rule book. And to your point, Shez, new race stewards would come in, and the first few races would be messy, but it would be a case of look, we're going to set the guidelines now to then keep every precedent we set in this first year will then carry forward into 2026, 2027, and beyond, so that you know where we stand on a particular issue. So like, okay, you cross the white line here. Okay, well, cross the white line at any other point. It's but it is going to take time, and I think at some point they're just going to have to bite the bullet and do it, and the teams are going to have to understand that some decisions may not go their way that might have gone their way previously, but that's just the new normal. That's the new normal now.
And I do think that social media has changed the landscape a little bit. Like, did any of you guys see somebody on Twitter had put up a picture of Michael Schumacher on the outside of Turn One in Austria, and said, what was the conversation about track limits back in 2004? And the fact is that we didn't have social media back then, so these decisions weren't scrutinized as closely as they are now. The partisanship wasn't there in the same way or as conspicuous as it is now. And it was really interesting to hear that Harold Frentzen, he replied to that picture and said, "Yeah, look, back in the day, it was the same for all of us. We used to have the same bloody conversations. We used to sit there and talk about, oh, Michael had a massive track limits. Why is he not getting penalised for it?" But it was all done behind closed doors. You couldn't see it. So these issues have been there for years, whether Charlie Whiting was there or not. These issues with stewarding and decision making have always been there. It's just that it's become an issue because we can talk about it now and we can have our opinions added to the melting pot of everybody else getting in and wanting to have their voice heard.
But I'd say, you know what, there isn't. there's a sense of heuristic availability to this. I get what you're saying, Shez, but I still think if Charlie were still around, I mean, Jose would hypothesize around this brilliantly, infinitely better than I ever could, and more succinctly, saying that if it were Charlie or a different era, Jean Todt even, that there would have been a quiet word as far as these expletives. I'm not talking about the decisions around racing stuff. That was the original thesis. No, around the expletives, there would have been a conversation had behind closed doors. It'd have been Charlie, Jean Todt, and the drivers, and it would have been like, "Come on, chaps, like, what are we doing? Like, I mean, $1 billion sport. Could you do us a favour? I know sometimes you're going to get cheesed off and occasionally drop a cheeky F-bomb, but can we tone it down for the cameras?" Was Rolex et al. HP funneling like hundreds of millions
Louis
in terms
Vuitton,
of
mate, yeah.
Louis Vuitton, bloody, like that. All of these companies, bellwethers, like proper marketing behemoths now, like funneling multi-million-pound deals into the sport. Can we just chill out for a second? You know what I mean? Unless you want to like take a 20-30% cut on your wage next time you try to negotiate. You can't. Can we just check? And it would have been like that, right? But apparently in January of 2025, common sense in F1 is no longer very common. It's all grandstand and do as I say, not as I do.
Treating the drivers like kids.
100%. Treat the drivers like kids. Showboating for the cameras and the press and the... Every time there's a race winner, there you get that. Therein lies the FIA president bloody keying with like... Do you know what I mean? And that's not, in my mind, that's not what good stewardship, that's not what a good regulatory body would do as its first order priority. But maybe I'm asking too much at this stage. It is what it is, eh? I don't know. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna close it on there. And on that bombshell, you guys have been legends as always. From Shazinho at TideGP. Go and check him out on YouTube and all podcasting platforms, maybe. From Sir Baxty of Baxty B F1 and Shifting Happens, if I remember correctly.
That's
on
correct.
YouTube
Yeah.
each and every single time. I've been your boy Cameron CC. We'll see you same time, same place next week as always. Between now and then, remember, prosecution rests. No further questions, Your Honour.